The Australian Human Rights Commission and their role in advocacy. Hi, my name is Sarah Baillie and I am an external student living in Port Lincoln, South Australia. Port Lincoln seems to be well known for bushfires and flooding. That is a picture of a person going through the Macca's drive-thru with a kayak about 6 months ago. Now, my background is in mental health. I worked there for about 5 years. Currently, I'm working as a school support officer at the Port Lincoln Special School. Why am I here? Well, despite my self-titled fabulousness, I'm here to present information about the Australian Human Rights Commission and the advocacy work they do for people with disability. So, first I will provide some history about the Human Rights Commission and a brief introduction into some of the different areas the Human Rights Commission works in. This will include a quick look at some of the Commission's most popular and well-known campaigns. I will then move on to explaining what disability discrimination is, how to make a complaint, and what the Commission does with those complaints. The focus will then turn to advocacy and an overview of some of the different types of advocacy. To bring it all together, I will finish off with a YouTube clip that shows how the Human Rights Commission advocacy comes together to promote and create change for people with a disability. By the end of this presentation, I want you to know who the Human Rights Commission is, the different types of works they do, and the advocacy work they do with people with disability. So, the Australian Human Rights Commission, formerly known as the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission, is an independent organisation that was established on December 10, 1986 on International Human Rights Day. They were formed as Australia's national human rights watchdog to promote and protect human rights in Australia. They began with 3 full-time commissioners, a Human Rights Commissioner, a Race Discrimination Commissioner, and a Sex Discrimination Commissioner. The Australian Human Rights Commission was given statutory responsibilities under the following federal laws: the Racial Discrimination Act of 1975, the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984, and the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission Act of 1986. Over the next 21 years, the Commission's role grew and workload grew markedly, and in addition to the aforementioned, the Human Rights Commission now has statutory responsibilities under the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992 and the Age Discrimination Act of 2004. These statutory responsibilities allow the Commission to receive complaints and monitor Australia's performance under international human rights standards. There is 1 president and currently 6 commissioners who oversee children's rights, race discrimination, sex discrimination, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander social justice, human rights and age and disability discrimination, with disability discrimination being the primary focus of today's presentation. So the following is a brief look at some of the most well-known campaigns and inquiries the Commission has created due to community needs and concerns. What time do you get off? Is a campaign about knowing where the line is in the workplace. Sexual harassment. The Close the Gap campaign is to close the health and life expectancy gap between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians within a generation. Willing to Work campaign is a national inquiry into employment discrimination against older Australians and Australians with disability. 20 Years 20 Stories campaign is celebrating 20 years of the Disability Discrimination Act. The Power of Oldness is an awareness campaign aimed at highlighting the value of older workers. Racism It Stops With Me is a campaign which invites all Australians to reflect on what they can do to counter racism wherever it happens. And finally, The Forgotten Children, which is a national inquiry into children in immigration detention in 2014. Now we've discovered who the Australian Human Rights Commission is, including some of the areas they work in. We'll now discuss the Commission and disability discrimination. So how do you know if you've been discriminated against because of your disability, and what do you do about it? The Australian Human Rights Commission describes disability discrimination as when someone with a disability is not given the same rights and opportunities as others in a similar situation due to their disability. The Commission has responsibilities to promote the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which Australia ratified in 2008. People who experience direct and indirect discrimination can complain to the Commission, and the Commission has legal obligations to investigate discrimination and human rights complaints. The Australian Human Rights Commission leads the implementation of the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992. Complaints relating to disability are the most common received by the Commission, making up 31% of the total complaint load. The Commission helps people resolve complaints of unfair treatment under the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992. To make a complaint to the Commission, you can either do it on yourself or do it yourself, or have a lawyer, advocate, or trade union do it on your behalf. And this complaint needs to be put in writing. where if you're not able to put your complaint in writing, the Commission can help you do that, as well as making a complaint in any language, as the Commission will organise a translator or interpreter. When the Commission receives a complaint, the President of the Commission can investigate the complaint and try to resolve it by conciliation. The Commissioner's role is to get both sides of the story with those involved and help them resolve the issue. Those involved help resolve the issue. Where appropriate, the Commission will invite you to participate in conciliation, which is an informal process that allows you and the respondent to talk about the issues and try and find a way to resolve it. If your complaint is not able to be resolved or is discontinued for another reason, you can take your complaint to the Federal Court of Australia or the Federal Circuit Court. The Australian Human Rights Commission values the role that advocates and lawyers can provide to both parties to assist them in understanding and articulating how the law applies to a complaint and advise parties on possible options to resolve the complaint. Now, to understand what advocacy is, the following YouTube clip is an easy to understand visual explanation.
What is advocacy? Advocacy helps people to speak up and get involved when decisions are being made about their life. Sometimes, people need some help to make choices and say what they want. Advocates are there to be on your side to help you express your views, preferences, and choices. Advocacy is based on the belief that you are the best person to make decisions about your life. Advocates are not there to tell you what to do, make decisions, or even give you advice. They are there to be on your side and walk with you through decision-making processes. It often involves listening, self-advocacy, practical support like attending meetings, challenging decisions, accessing information, understanding information, accessing services, participating in communities, challenging discrimination, making and communicating choices, protecting human rights, supported decision-making, but is always about promoting a person's wishes, feelings, aspirations, and preferences. Kate Mercer.
So there are many different types of advocacy, and for the purpose of this presentation, I will focus on the three main types of advocacy the Human Rights Commission uses in conjunction with disability discrimination. Self-advocacy, as Van Roosen describes, is people being able to effectively communicate, negotiate, or assert their own interests, desires, needs, and rights. It also involves making informed decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions. Systemic advocacy. The Australian Human Rights Commission explains systemic advocacy as trying to change a system to address the structural causes of inequality. And finally, legal advocacy. Wilkes explains legal advocacy as advocacy that involves legal information, advice, and representation by someone with a legal knowledge. Lastly, I would like to finish off with a clip that shows how the Australian Human Rights Commission and advocacy can work together to create change. Also, take note of this guy's shirt. I think it's really cool.
Text just the ticket. Bruce Maguire, a grey-haired man, sits in a city garden, then walks downstairs with a white cane.
I'm a very shy person, really, but from time to time I find myself in a position where, in order to deal with discrimination or lack of access, I have to be a self-advocate.
When Australia secured the Sydney 2000 Olympics, Bruce Maguire shared the nation's pride and promised his family tickets to the greatest sporting event on earth.
The Games were promoted in Australia. It was the Games for all Australians. You know, I'm an Australian. I have a disability, but I'm still an Australian, so the games are for me too.
He couldn't wait to plan which events they'd go to, but he couldn't access the information.
This is the official Olympics ticket book.
He flicks through an upside-down book.
I don't even know whether it's up the right way or not. I rang the Sydney Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, and I was told that there was no way that they were going to be producing a ticket book in Braille.
The Olympics website wasn't accessible for people who use screen readers or voice output, so Bruce lodged a complaint with the Human Rights Commission. Bruce's complaint grew into a heated public debate. Australia's prejudiced attitudes were exposed.
Some of the more right-wing journalists were highly critical, saying, well, you know, this is just the thin end of the wedge. If we provide ticket books in Braille, then the next thing you know, people with claustrophobia will want special rooms at the Olympics where they can sit, by themselves. It'll never end, and there's got to be limits to what we can, what we as a society can provide.
Bruce was victimised, but his rights were clear under the Disability Discrimination Act.
It was constant stress. I was studying a university course. I had to withdraw from that because I was just spending so much time on the so-called case. My marriage kind of fell apart. I was dealing with barristers who were really out to discredit me and tell me I was just in it for selfish reasons. And I felt very alone when the case had all finished. And I realised, well, this 16 months of my life I've devoted pretty much exclusively to this.
He plays a bamboo flute.
Bruce was prepared to play his part to achieve equality for all.
I think anyone who sets out to challenge entrenched discrimination and an entrenched attitude that says that people with disability aren't equal with us, I think he's going to run up against some pretty tough barriers.
Bruce won the case. All public organisations must now provide accessible websites and information. Everyone has the power to affect change. Complaints under the DDA are often small things most people take for granted.
Lauren Henley plugs earphones into an ATM.
To get cash out, press 1.
To ensure all banks provided accessible ATMs, blind citizens of Australia rallied.
Balance, press 5.
Members lodged strategic complaints targeting all banks. Their voices were heard.
Because of those strategic complaints with the Human Rights Commission, we now have a lot of talking ATMs.
Every time we take positive action to try to remove a disabling barrier, and every time we strive to change someone's discriminatory attitude, then I think we're making the world that we leave to our children and our children's children a more civilised and civilising place. And for me, that's what gives meaning to life.
Credits produced by Attitude Pictures. Copyright 2013 Australian Human Rights Commission. 20 years, 20 stories is a part.
If you would like to contact the Australian Human Rights Commission, there's their contact details. And there's my reference list. Thank you very much for watching.